So I imagine some of the athletes lose an awful amount of weight on their challenges unless they can get the calories in.
Well, they can do, and again, my job with the team is to try and maintain that.
Yeah.
Because the availability of energy is one of the limiting factors to an ultra endurance challenge. And so what we are always trying to do, success to me is that they finish the event at the same weight as they started the event.
Okay.
And that's success, because what you've done is you have struck this energy balance between consumption versus expenditure, and that's important because energy is required to actually complete the challenge, but it's not an easy task at all. You'd sort of think, well, that's the easy bit. It's probably one of the most difficult pieces.
And it can get quite complex, can't it? As in with David Walliams, I remember he was being fed from a stick to make sure the challenge was, it was part of the rules of the challenge that you can't touch the boat.
Yeah.
So how many calories was he able to bring in on that?
Well, so that was on the channel.
Yeah.
You can't touch the boat, you can't touch anybody, otherwise the challenge is over. So you get a bottle on the end of a piece of string, and you get food in a cup on the end of a stick. I mean, it's a very weird thing to do. But what we did prior to that is actually formulated the ability to actually two things. One is to hydrate. Weirdly enough, in the cold, we actually dehydrate more rapidly. There's a thing called cold-induced diuresis. So we all experience it. When you go out on a cold day, all of a sudden you need a wee. Yeah. And that's called cold-induced diuresis. When you're swimming in cold open water, you urinate constantly. It's a really weird thing. But it does keep you warm sometimes when you're in a wetsuit. So it's not a bad thing. So what you're trying to do is focus on energy availability as well as actually hydration. And having formulated that, what we then do with training, and that's why in training is important, is we actually test those formulations. We work out what is going to work best, because on the channel, for example, David's got 30 seconds every 30 minutes to take in the calories and fluid required to keep him normally hydrated with energy levels remaining high.
Wow.
It's a very difficult thing to do. So again, the intricacies of making it happen on the road or in the water is much more complex than it would be if we were sat at home.
And I imagine in the water also, probably some nausea with the amount of salt in the water. And
yeah. Well, interesting enough, so if you talk about open water swimming, we've done quite a few open water swims. We worked with, I looked after James Cracknell on his Transcontinental Challenge where we swam the Gibraltar Straits, and David came and joined us then. Yeah. Interestingly, in the Gibraltar Straits, David got seasickness. It's quite a big sea across the Gibraltar Straits, and that motion can actually cause motion sickness, seasickness, actually when you're in the water. And when you're vomiting in the water, it's not a pleasant place to be. Technically, it's quite a difficult thing to do, but also what you're doing is you're stripping fluids constantly. So again, you have to be very careful of that. Add on top of that in salt water, one of the big problems you get in salt water is you get actually a swelling of the tongue to the point, because you're cold as well, it's quite difficult to differentiate between food and your tongue. Wow. So there is a possibility of actually biting through the tongue.
And that's happened
not unusual,
to athletes,
Yeah, not unusual. And so again, selecting the right foodstuffs, which is texturally different from the tongue, is actually quite important. So actually, you can when you're in the water, you can discern. So for example, something like a banana works really well, but of course, what you can't do is feed the same thing constantly over and over again, because you lose satiety. You just can't be bothered to eat anymore. Once you stop eating, all of a sudden calories start to drop. You run out of energy. End of challenge. Yeah. So it's quite a lot of science that goes into it. In fact, there's a hell of a lot of science that goes into it to make sure that we plan it ahead of time and make sure we get it right on the day.